Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar, 2025 Insights to 2026 Readiness for Sponsors and CROs and Clinical Research. My name is Valerie. I'm Wemedoo COO, and I will guide you through today's session. And with me today, let me briefly introduce our speakers for today. I'm joined today by Ivana. Ivana is a business development manager and a key sales team member at Wemedoo, and she will talk a little bit more about her experience visiting all the events and really being at the pulse of events this year. Further joined by Urosh. Urosh is our Chief Customer Officer, so leading our customer-facing work and teams, as well as Nina, who is the key strategy and business leader here for us at Wemedoo as our Chief Executive Officer. So throughout 2025, we've seen a lot of movement in clinical research, from conversations at events to what teams experience in everyday delivery. Today we want to look back, but we also want to look ahead and think about what do these insights mean for 2026. So let's maybe start first with 2025. It was a super busy event season for us here in the industry. And you were all out there, Ivana, speaking with customers, partners, industry experts. So from your experience, what themes kept coming up the most this year?
Thank you, Valerie, and thank you for the nice intro. As mentioned, I was the one who actually traveled most frequently from our team, so I had quite of an insight into the topics that were covered at the congresses. I would highlight, first of all, the recruitment challenges, which is a topic that never goes out of style. The sites feel more and more pressured to deliver more patients in shorter periods of time, so this is one of the topics that is definitely coming up at all events. I would also say that AI is coming up as a buzzing theme at all the events, whatever the main topic of the event is. We have seen AI being implemented at a lot of steps in clinical trial space, starting from protocol design, then identification of patients, all the way to data analysis in the end. So this is also one of the topics that has been covered a lot. I would also state that there's a huge topic in the industry that covers interoperability, because the stakeholders of clinical trials have noticed that the tools that are supporting clinical trials are not built in the right way, not talking to one another. The data is not seamlessly flowing between the sites, the CROs, and the sponsors. So this was one of the challenges that was covered at a lot of the events we attended. And I would finally say that there was a lot of talks, especially the panel discussions between different stakeholders on how the sponsors choose the CRO partners for their clinical trials. And this was one of the main topics as well. There has been a lot of speech about whether it's better to go with a one big CRO that applies the fit-for-all approach, or focus on a couple of vendors that provide niche specialties in a couple of fields and operate in this way. So I would say these four topics were the ones that were covered mostly at the events, and something that there was a lot of buzz about.
Great, thank you, Ivana. You gave us a lot of great insights and ideas of that to which we want to deep dive in further. But now I just want to also look at, for example, Nina. Which points resonate with you? What else have you seen this year?
Thanks, Valerie. Hi, everyone. I'm very happy to be here today. The most surprising thing for me was that how similar the messages have been across different discussions. I think people are slowly tired of adding more and more tools, spending a lot of their time managing different vendors. But what really they want is actually to have less rework, less integration, mapping between the systems. And of course, they want to have better, smoother flow between the teams and partners. But going back to what Ivana has mentioned around AI topic, what I have observed over the last few months is actually that AI discussions have become more operational, more practical. People are challenging the AI claims. They are asking the questions like, where does it really help me? Please show me the examples. Please show me how it works. And perhaps for me, the most significant and at least for me, obvious shift in the mood in the industry is that quite a lot of people are surprised how fast things are moving. business as usual will not work anymore, and actually everyone is now asking or rethinking their role, their value in the chain. And this is exactly why I think that collaboration matters now much more than before.
Great. Again, very interesting. And I just want to turn last but not least to Urosh. I mean, you're knee deep in the trenches, both with our teams, but also with our customers. What was a little bit the most, what came up most often in your conversations this year?
First of all, thank you for joining us. Thank you for the question. This year has been interesting, let's say, for me personally, especially with our clients, because what I've noticed this year is a dramatic increase in complex study designs. What's been happening is that clients and sponsors are looking to streamline not just their activities, but I've been noticing a shift in models because they've been noticing that traditional drug development pathways aren't working as well as they would like. It's becoming extremely expensive, and they need to actually, companies need to get their drugs to market faster using better models. By that, I mean multifactorial designs. I mean looking at personalized therapy, which doesn't have a traditional, let's say, drug development model. And while that will and does decrease their time to market potentially, and I'm sure in the future it will. On the other hand, it does add complexity to the daily operations because we have to take a look at the actual, let's say, studies in a way that has not been looked at before. Meaning that we're putting more things into a study. We are adding features. We are adding different ways of doing things. And what that's going to mean, and what it already means, in my opinion, is that organizations are going to, sponsors are going to require organizations to be taking part in their trials that can change and quickly adapt to these new requirements and new study models. Also, that may be that, let's say, larger companies are may or may not be flexible and agile enough to help them. And perhaps legacy systems, especially legacy data systems, may not be flexible enough for these completely new approaches at clinical trials.
Good. I mean, I have so many follow-up questions on that, but I think a lot of them will relate to how can we be ready for 2026. So I don't want to jump right into that. But I also just want to use this point because I'm sure I'm not the only one having a lot of follow-up questions here. Also to the audience, please use the comment field on the LinkedIn Live if you have any questions throughout the event, to ask your questions. We have a dedicated 10-minute slot towards the end of the event where we will try to answer all of your questions. So please feel free to ask them anytime. But for now, I would like to thank you all for providing this overview to get us started. And there are definitely a couple of topics I would like to pick up again. Coming back to what you said earlier, Ivana, I think we were talking about changing sponsor and CRO expectations. How do they exactly shift, and what does that mean for the industry?
Thanks for the question. It's actually an add-on answer to what Urosh has been saying previously. As the study designs have gotten more complex and the needs for very specific providers that can offer capabilities in this regard has been higher than ever before. I would say that the big sponsors, but as well as the mid-size companies, are shifting more towards choosing a couple of smaller providers that actually specialize in very niche fields and that can offer support for these specific study designs and complex protocols, rather than going with the one big CRO player, as mentioned in the beginning, that is usually not agile and flexible enough to cover those needs. So this was one of the topics that was covered at the events, a lot of the events that I have attended this year. And it was actually said by different stakeholders. So it was heard even from big CROs that are noticing this shift. So it's definitely a trend, and I can only expect that it becomes more and more frequent next year as well.
Yeah, and maybe to redirect that question to Nina, what does that mean to us at Wemedoo, and how do you see kind of, because you mentioned collaborations, right? You mentioned the ecosystem. How does what Ivana just mentioned kind of translate for us?
I fully agree what Ivana and Urosh have said. And indeed, the industry is moving from isolated players to, let's say, well-connected ecosystems. And I think the question is not right now, can we do this? The question is more now about how well and how clean we can connect everyone involved in order to run the work together. And I would say what we have seen until now is that we work like close to each other or next to each other, that we move toward let's connect, create ecosystem, and deliver together what needs to be done on the fly.
Okay. And could you share some insights on how we do that at Wemedoo?
Yes, of course. Collaboration is something that I really think that is getting more important, much more than previously. But when I say or mention it, I think it's more about how we connect and how we actually choose the right partners and what technology foundation is needed in order to get there. So it's not just about adding additional partners. That's what actually has been done in the past. So it was more the question about the capacity. Who is doing what? But now it's more the shift toward let's collaborate in a clean and seamless way. And this is how I personally think it's getting more and more important, because collaborations, if you do it correctly, let's put it that way, the collaboration could be a real performance driver for everyone. This is where the industry needs to go.
Absolutely. And that leads me a little bit to another topic I wrote down that I think Ivana and Nina, you both mentioned in your intro. And that's a little bit asking this to Urosh. I mean, you know, AI, I mean, AI has been around all year, it's been around for many years, but I feel like there's an increasing buzz right now. So how much of AI, what does it actually mean in real conversations and real projects? Where do you see AI currently being adopted? Where do you see the potential here, Urosh?
This year, I've seen AI being adopted in a number of areas. The most interesting is, for example, protocol writing and protocol design. There's a couple of very, very interesting companies that are making extremely good progress on that to actually use AI to aid in protocol writing and study design in a very collaborative fashion. May I add on to that? I also see AI being used to actually accelerate certain activities within the clinical trial lifecycle. For example, ECRF design or implementation of ECRFs, the mapping for submission data sets. I know this is something that we're working on right now, but there's many areas that I've seen it, and I've even seen it in actual drug development in AI accelerating the drug design. Working with a couple of clients on that. However, to go back to the collaboration topic, because there has been a lot said about collaboration. Collaboration is even more important, because in my experience over the past year, there's nothing that will slow down a study. You cannot accelerate certain aspects of a study. How much ineffective collaboration and intransparency can slow down a study. So it's not just one factor. It's not just let's do something faster. Let's take out the bottlenecks that actually will slow down, let's say, certain changes, updating something in the study, communicating faster so that different study teams can actually come together and get the result for the sponsor. In my opinion, that's where I see the next steps being taken.
Absolutely. And I think we have these insights across industries that AI is not always the best use case for all scenarios. Sometimes simple automation is sufficient, but maybe you could share a little bit with us what, from your perspective, are the most promising use cases for AI that you currently would see?
I think I've said right now the most promising use cases. So it's writing. Basically, it's in the short term, I see the parts that don't need that extensive validation, and that is something with human in the middle. What's called human in the loop. However, having said that, as you just said, they don't. It's not necessarily AI is not necessarily the end all and be all. AI, what's called automation, which can be validated very easily, can accelerate timelines extremely quickly, and we all know that in our GXP environment, validation is extremely important. So I do see AI as an extremely important tool, but I don't see it as the panacea.
If I may jump in here from a bit of sales and business development perspective, to what Urosh said about AI being implemented for protocol design and also for automation of some tasks in clinical trials, at the events there have also been a huge number of startups that are focusing exactly on these fields. We had some interesting conversations with the companies that implement AI for designing the protocol based on the existing databases that pull the already existing protocols from the clinical trial space. And also even some companies that develop AI for automation of the eCRF creation, for instance. So it's quite a topic, and I also think that this is one of the parts of our industry where AI can be implemented.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I think that's also links back again to collaboration and how we at Wemedoo build our ecosystem, because we definitely need to know and be collaborating with these players. Good. I think we've discussed now a lot about, 2025, and we started talking a little bit about 2026, but let's really shift that focus onto the next year. So how, based on everything you saw this year, what will matter most in 2026? And I think we've alluded to this, but how should teams be preparing for it? So maybe let's start with Urosh here. Like, what should sponsors and CROs be prepared for in 2026, especially since I think we alluded to it in the beginning, we see increasing trial complexity and operational demands?
In 2026, sponsors really need to accelerate their, let's say, first of all, adoption of new technologies. The second, second of all, I think they're going to have to look at divesting to, let's say, more agile players in the market. Of course, we're not talking about everybody. We're talking about the actual, let's say the more avant-garde, if I may use that word for lack of a better word. But people are going to have to, sponsors are going to have to start going to smaller players who are much more agile, and the ones that are ready to do that, the ones that are ready to, let's say, open up their minds, be a little bit, be less rigid. I think that's going to be definitely something that's we have to be ready for in 2026.
Great. And maybe from a strategic industry perspective, I mean, we talked a lot about, you said capacity, it's more a question about capability right now, but what capabilities, what partnerships will matter most in 2026? And how do you prepare organizations for that?
I personally think that readiness will be defined by how well the teams can handle the change and the complexity without losing time. But in order to get there, actually, they need to have a very robust set up capabilities in their teams. They need to have in place ongoing visibility, because if they see the issues too late, they're just reacting, firefighting. And perhaps the most important, in my opinion, topic is, or I would even say that it's a kind of a precondition to be ready, is to have a robust and sophisticated technology that can support everything that I have mentioned before. So the winners for me will be those who are really open for new collaborations, who can adapt very fast, and who are building the partnership that really can reduce the complexity or operational complexity in daily life.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing these deep insights. And before we now pause and open up basically the line of questions from the audience, just to maybe as a one last closing statement, one final thought from each of you. What's the one lesson from 2025 that should guide how we prepare for 2026? And Ivana, maybe you want to get us started here.
Absolutely, very gladly. So coming back to what Nina and Urosh have focused on in the previous sentences, I think that in order to achieve this successful outcome with the complex trials and communication between the teams, all stakeholders shall be very open and honest in discussions. I think that the needs and expectations from the sponsors shall be communicated to vendors very clearly. This is something that has, I would say, caused problems in the last year, and that should be kept in mind of everyone. So I would say openness, readiness for the dialogue, and clear communication from both sides, whether the one is sponsoring the trial or performing the services of the trial, should definitely be on the highest possible level. That would be something from the business development perspective.
Urosh, do you want to go next?
I think the key to the rapidly changing landscape and the rapidly changing ways of doing things is that you need to be able to understand each other's capabilities. For decision making in real time, not real time, extremely quick decision making. I would actually go back to the dialogue. So, I mean, various organizations have different expertises. Let's talk, let's understand, let's see what we can all bring to the table. Because it's the different ways of thinking that will actually get us to the next step.
Absolutely. And last but not least,
perhaps to put it in one sentence from my side, I think what really matters is the real-time visibility and collaboration, so that we can see the bottlenecks early in advance before they hit the budgets and the timelines.
Thank you all for already sharing so many great insights. I'm feeling very inspired, and I hope so does the audience. So I just want to open it up. Please ask any questions you might have in the chat on LinkedIn, and they will show up here for us. And I will have a look now in the questions we have received, and we have let us get started on the first one. I'm blending in here from Raj. The question on how is Wemedoo validating AI-driven data extraction and automation outputs to ensure regulatory-grade accuracy, especially when dealing with unstructured clinical data such as source documents and imaging reports. It's a very specific question. Who wants to get us started on this one? I'm looking more in Urosh and Nina's direction right now.
This type of extraction automation outputs. I mean, automation outputs can be validated relatively easily. That's not an issue. But AI data-driven extraction, that one I see still as human in the loop. We can have for regulatory grade accuracy, we do need human in the loop, especially for certain types of data. Now, of course, there's a risk analysis, like everything else. So, for example, data extraction for, say, primary endpoint safety, well, definitely is going to have to require human in the loop in my opinion, for the foreseeable future. While other data, let's say, which are less, let's say, mission critical, may require less of this.
Great. Then I see we have another question here from Dushan, asking, in our opinion, can today's e-clinical solutions meet the requirements of complex study designs as per their verbatim settings, or do they require additional modifications?
I'll take this one.
I can take that one.
Sure.
I think what makes the biggest difference between our approach and what we now see in the market is actually that we have standalone solutions that are connected. Some of them do it better, some of them less good, but actually what needs over the market, or what the industry is now asking, is that what I have previously said, that we really connect in a seamless way, that the data can flow between the teams, across the modules, across the systems actually, in order to be more efficient and effective. And this is exactly what the legacy systems right now cannot do it. At the end, everyone will achieve the goals, but the question is about the cost. Who at the end will pay the price later on? And perhaps the part of the question, if there are any additional modification programming needs, yes, in the market, actually every process, every step, every handover needs to be manually done, manual cleanups, reconciliations. But again, what has set us apart is actually that they are solutions, their approaches, there's the technology foundation that really can enable the clients to perform all the work without any single code of programming. So nowadays it's possible just to, with drag and drop menus, to really mirror the processes that you have on your side. So the complexity should not be an issue anymore.
Absolutely. Good. And I'm jumping into the next one because this is a little bit of longer, so I'm reading it out. And I think, Urosh, this one is for you, Priya. So from a clinical data management perspective, what do you see as the top 1 or 2 priorities sponsors and CROs should focus on going into 2026 to manage growing data volume and complexity, while still keeping data quality, compliance, and inspection readiness strong?
The quantity of data that's being collected, and I can definitely say for some trials, the quantity of data that we're collecting is starting to become nearly impossible to say manage in traditional ways, to review in traditional ways, to reconcile in traditional ways. I think that that train has long left the station. So what is going to be required is literally real-time analysis. Using advanced tools and maybe even advanced statistical tools for real-time analyses as the data is coming in is going to be completely critical. Things like Power BI with statistics layered on top of it that can be actually done in real time. The days of sifting through manually through reports, creating reports one at a time, sending them for review are starting to become nearly impossible and frustrating for teams. So this is one of the ways that we're going to have to handle this type of development. The other development is potentially using automations to flag, let's say, various in a mountain of data.
Thank you, Urosh. I'm receiving lots of questions, so I'm a little bit pacing through the question here. So apologies for that. We have another question from Johannes John. And as partnerships become more and more essential, what do you all think is the single thing that makes a collaboration truly effective in complex studies today?
Maybe I can start here. Definitely, for what I've said, for the takeaway message for this year, I would also apply the same answer here. So, really being truly open and honest about the expectations, having a very open dialogue from both sides. But I cannot highlight only this one. I think also technology is crucial. So having a technology that can keep up with the necessities of the complex studies, I think it doesn't go without it. So not a single thing, but I would highlight these two as the most crucial ones from my perspective.
Just perhaps to add from my end, I think if we can support each other and building all the work on well-structured and standardized data, it's much easier to connect upstream and downstream processes in a very seamless and clean way. So you have to get the right partners in order to save a lot of time and money along the entire life cycle of a clinical trial.
I would add one thing more: direct communication, direct and timely communication, and proactive communication. The biggest problems I see are when people wait until a problem comes, until a problem actually rears its head when it could have been communicated earlier that there's a potential problem. Because every time I've seen a potential problem, the first thing that happens, it actually becomes real.
Problems tends to have these ways, unfortunately. They tend to not resolve themselves. Yeah, absolutely. Good. And then I have actually a very interesting question, and I think that's a beautiful question to close today's conversation. And that is the one from Sanya. What signals from 2025 makes you most confident or cautious about 2026? So looking at it from both perspectives. Let's maybe start with the cautious one. What is kind of the biggest challenge maybe going into 2026?
I can jump in here. What I have seen and what I think it's important to mention today is that the people get a lot of noise, a lot of claims. Nowadays, it's quite difficult actually to find the right solution, to find the right partner if you don't have these open dialogues, discussions to really understand what capabilities the partners have in place. And again, a lot of people are a little bit, let's say, hesitant in order to enter into collaboration, to enter into any kind of discussions, because a lot of them fear that they are disclosing or exposing their IP rights. But I think what we can now all together learn is just to have discussion, to learn more about each other and to see where that goes in the next year.
And is that also something that drives your confidence for 2026? Or what's the confidence part?
The confidence part is, as I have mentioned before, people slowly have realized that a lot is changing in our industry. So the people are really more, let's say, open to ask the questions, to rethink existing landscape. And I think what I would say it's, for me, would be the most confident part for the next year is that people want to change existing setups. People really have realized that with AI, with modern technology, digitalization, that a lot of existing processes could be much better. And this is for me that I think everyone now just needs to find the right direction, the right partner, but everyone is in a very, very sporty direction toward new business models and new approaches.
Great, thank you. Thank you for those insights.
If I may continue, because yes. I have a slightly different approach to what Nina said regarding AI, I was actually thinking of putting it to the caution part of my answer. So even though I consider it's a great tool and we have touched a bit on the possible applications and already existing applications of AI in clinical trials, I still think that it's a topic that should require a lot of cautiousness, even in 2026, because even though it can automate a lot of repetitive tasks done by humans, we still need to be very, very cautious and not apply it to all the tasks. We still need to be on top of it, so to say. So I would definitely take this message into the next year as well.
Urosh, do you want to close us off?
Sure. I'm going to take a completely different direction. 2025 was a year that saw, let's say, dramatic, quite a bit of a drop in investment into the development of new therapeutics. There are a number of reasons for this. We can talk about it outside of this if anybody wants. And that makes me actually optimistic for 2026. Because even I've noticed lately that, companies aren't going to sit on that for a long time. So at one point in time, that mold is going to break. And I'm actually confident about 2026 in terms of that there will be more activity in our industry than there was last year, and that people will be less hesitant to actually invest in new development than they were in 2025.
Great. That indeed is a very great way to look ahead. And I just want to thank all of you again for your insights and discussions today. I certainly took a lot away from this conversation, feeling quite energized, especially now from this last question. It was a great last question. And with that, also thank you to everybody who joined us today for the live, and thank you for your active questions. We really look forward to continuing this conversation with you in 2026. Also, if you have any follow-up questions to any of the speakers, reach out directly, and we're happy to pick this up and continue this. And yeah, with that, thank you very much, and see you in our next webinar, which will be happening in January as we start into the new year. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.